All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're totally demystifying the step-by-step journey to getting a building permit for a granny flat. Specifically, we're looking at projects up to 60 square meters. Whether you're hoping to create a cozy space for aging parents, a backyard office, or a killer guest house, looking at the pre-build process from the outside can seem, well, incredibly daunting. But today, we're going to break the whole thing down step by step so you know exactly what to expect.
You know that feeling when you're totally ready to build but completely stuck on where to even start? It's so frustrating. Bureaucracy and building regulations can feel like a massive headache when you're just a homeowner wanting to improve your own property. But hey, don't worry. This comprehensive 9-step homeowner guide is absolutely your ultimate cure to get you from an empty patch of grass to the official starting line of construction. We're zeroing in strictly on those crucial pre-build permit steps and the project timeline so you can take total control of your project.
To do that, we'll follow a clear chronological roadmap. First, assessing your property site. Second, designing your granny flat. Third, finalizing blueprints and engineering. Fourth, navigating building regulations. And fifth, wrapping up with the project timeline and approval.
Section 1. Assessing your property site. Because before we can dream up that perfect layout, we really have to lay the physical groundwork by getting to know your land.
And this is exactly why step 1 is getting a professional site survey. Look, an unsurveyed property is basically a blind spot. Your boundaries and features are just completely unknown, and you simply cannot design a legal structure based on guesswork. So, a licensed surveyor steps in and transforms that unknown property into a surveyed one. They give you a crystal clear map of your exact boundaries, existing structures, trees, and even those tricky hidden easements. This literally establishes the true foundation for all your design and documentation moving forward. Okay, so step 2 brings us to preliminary site assessments. Once you know your boundaries, you have to identify your site's specific constraints. And keep in mind, this isn't some one-size-fits-all checklist. Depending on your lot, you might need an arborist report if you've got protected trees nearby. You are definitely going to need a geotechnical soil test to understand the actual earth you're building on. You might also need environmental assessments for things like bushfire or flood risks, and asset investigations just to ensure you aren't about to pour a concrete slab right over a crucial city drainage pipe. Trust me, finding these things out now saves you thousands of dollars in redesign fees later.
With the preliminary groundwork laid and the constraints understood, we enter Section 2, Designing Your Granny Flat. This is where things get really fun.
Step 3 is what we call the concept design cycle. It's basically a 4-part loop. We start off with the site plan, mapping the site and its features based on that professional survey we just talked about. Then, we outline the internal layout with a floor plan. Next up, we create elevations to show the external appearance of the granny flat, and finally, we add preliminary dimensions to give a real sense of scale. It's an iterative cycle that brings the basic shape of your future space to life.
Now, the real crux of step 4 is the balancing act of client review and revisions. As a homeowner, this is where your voice is the loudest. Your feedback dictates the room sizes, the internal flow, and what the facade looks like. But, and this is a big but, your client feedback must be immediately balanced with strict regulatory compliance. Every suggestion you make has to adhere to building codes. I mean, you can't exactly put a giant, clear window right up against your neighbor's fence. Once that perfect balance is struck between your grand vision and the rules, we finally reach design approval.
Moving right along into Section 3, Finalizing Blueprints and Engineering. Time to translate those beautiful, approved ideas into structurally sound, highly technical blueprints.
Step 5 is where your construction drawings get fully fleshed out. We are moving away from concepts and into concrete, actionable plans. These drawings now include precise dimension floor plans so the builders know exactly where every single wall goes. They include extensive construction details and schedules. Critically, they also incorporate energy efficiency requirements, which is huge for making sure your granny flat meets modern insulation and energy standards. And lastly, they prepare to integrate all the structural info.
Then, Step 6 brings in the heavy technical details through engineering documentation. Enter the structural engineer. They are brought in to prepare computations that guarantee the absolute structural integrity of your build. For the structural framing, they're designing the actual skeleton of the building. For the footing and slab, they design the foundation and floor specifically based on that soil test we did back in Step 2. And for the beam and lintel details, they calculate exactly how the support elements will safely hold everything up. Make no mistake, this engineering documentation is absolutely mandatory for a safe, legal build.
With the designs and engineering locked in, we move to Section 4, Navigating Building Regulations.
Time to clear those final bureaucratic hurdles to make your build completely legal.
For step 7, you've got to appoint a building surveyor. Now keep in mind, a building surveyor is an independent professional. They aren't there to design your home, they are basically there to police it. Think of the National Construction Code, or NCC, and your local building regulations as their ultimate plain English checklists. They take all those final drawings and engineering computations we just covered and independently assess them to verify total 100% regulatory compliance.
Step 8 forces a pretty major decision on your construction method, and it's a vital one for any homeowner to wrap their head around. You essentially have two main paths. Will you hire a registered builder? The massive benefit here is that they provide all the required insurance and take on the liability. Or will you act as an owner builder? If you choose this path, you're assuming total management responsibility for the site, and you're legally required to get a certificate of consent from the Victorian Building Authority. The surveyor is going to need to know which path you've chosen before they can even think about issuing a permit.
And finally, we reach Section 5, Project Timeline and Approval. Let's look at the actual timeline and find out how you grab that golden ticket to start digging.
Step 9 is the absolute culmination of all your hard work. This is the moment your status flips from construction not approved to officially ready to commence. The surveyor verifies that all your necessary documents are approved, and they ensure that required professionals, like your builder, have their official appointments scheduled. Once those boxes are checked, boom, the building permit is issued. Construction is officially approved.
Let's do a quick time check on this whole pre-build journey. It looks daunting at first glance, right? But it actually breaks down into a super manageable 6 to 10 week timeline. Weeks 1 to 2 are dedicated to the site survey and those preliminary reports. Weeks 3 to 4 cover your draft design and client review. Weeks 5 to 7 give the draftsmen and engineers the time they need to create the final blueprints. And finally, weeks 8 to 10 are handed over to the building surveyor for their assessment and the ultimate permit issue. Seeing it laid out chronologically really demystifies the anxiety, doesn't it?
So, you've got the blueprint, you know the exact timeline, and you know exactly who to hire. The bureaucracy? It's literally just a checklist now, no longer a roadblock. The only question left for you is, what incredible space will you build in your 60 square meters? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, happy building!